The Pentagon has a list. Ships scheduled to be decommissioned, retired, scrapped. USS Comstock was on that list, scheduled to end her career in 2026. Paperwork filed, replacement planned, her final port call already being discussed inside budget meetings. Then Hormuz closed, and the ship that was supposed to die is now crossing the Pacific Ocean, carrying 4 hovercraft, 600 tons of war supplies, and the answer to a problem that $40 billion of American naval firepower could not solve. This is not a story about a warship. This is a story about what actually wins wars. And the answer is never what the headlines show you. Subscribe. We do not cover ships. We cover the equations ships are built to solve. Here is what 3 carrier strike groups accomplished at Hormuz. 120 Iranian warships destroyed or disabled. Every Kilo-class submarine Iran operated gone. Every Sina-class corvette gone. Every drone carrier. Every major surface combatant Iran built over 4 decades at the bottom of the Persian Gulf. The United States Navy did not lose a single ship, did not lose a single engagement. By every traditional measure of naval warfare, this was a perfect victory, and the Strait of Hormuz is still closed. 21 nautical miles wide at its narrowest point, the corridor that carries 21% of the world's oil. The waterway that moves $1 trillion in trade every year. Still closed. 3,200 vessels sitting anchored, going nowhere. 250 oil tankers, waiting. The world economy bleeding $40 billion every single week. Why? Because destroying a navy and controlling a waterway are 2 completely different problems. The US Navy built the most powerful blue water fleet in human history to solve the first problem. It was not built to solve the second. The second problem is not about missiles or radar or fighter jets. The second problem is this. After Marines land on Abu Musa Island and secure the high ground, who feeds them on day 5? Who delivers ammunition on day 10? Who performs surgery on day 15 when 3 of them are bleeding out and the nearest hospital is 300 nautical miles away? Seizing an island takes 1 morning. Holding it takes a supply chain, and a supply chain in a minefield needs a very specific kind of ship. Every analyst covering this conflict asks the same question. When will the strait reopen? Wrong question. The right question is simpler and harder. What does it take to keep 4,400 Marines alive on 3 fortified islands, surrounded by mines in every direction with no port, no road, and no supply depot within 300 nautical miles? That question has one answer, and the answer was almost sent to a scrapyard. May 25th, 1982, South Atlantic Ocean. Britain is fighting Argentina for the Falkland Islands. The troops have landed, they hold their positions, the assault is succeeding. Then 2 AM Trent Nuff Exocet missile fire from Argentine jets. The target is not a warship. It is the Atlantic Conveyor, a converted container ship carrying helicopters. 3 Chinook heavy-lift helicopters, 6 Wessex helicopters, gone in a single strike. Overnight, Britain loses the machines that move ammunition across the island. The campaign does not collapse from enemy fire. It nearly collapses from logistics failure. Ammunition consumption exceeded planning estimates by 4 times. 4 times. No military planner in history has ever accurately predicted how fast supplies disappear once the shooting starts. Not in World War II, not in Korea, not in Vietnam, not in Iraq. The number is always 4 times higher than the estimate. Always. Britain won, but barely. And not because of superior firepower. Because one surviving supply ship kept the logistics chain alive. Now look at Hormuz. Same equation, different ocean, same answer required. But the Falklands is not the only lesson. Go back further. World War II. Pacific Theater. The Japanese held islands across thousands of miles of ocean. American forces island hopped, seizing one island, using it as a base to reach the next. Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Iwo Jima. Every single campaign taught the same lesson. The assault force that landed was never the limiting factor. The logistics force that followed was. At Guadalcanal, Marines held the island for 6 months under constant attack. Not because they were better fighters, though they were, but because Navy supply ships kept running the Cactus Express at night, delivering food, ammunition, and medical supplies under enemy fire. Cut the supply line, the island falls. The Japanese understood this. They spent more resources trying to cut the American supply line than they spent trying to defeat the Marines directly. Iran's strategists studied the same history. The mines around Abu Musa are not just a defense. They are a supply line cutter, designed to make the island impossible to sustain after it is seized. Designed to make the Americans choose between holding the island and feeding the Marines. Iran assumed no ship could solve that equation. They did not account for one that flies. USS Comstock, LSD-4-5, Whidbey Island-class dock landing ship. 610 feet of steel. 16,000 tons fully loaded. Commissioned in 1990. Not elegant. Not fast. Not the ship that appears in recruitment videos. She does not carry stealth fighters. She does not fire Tomahawk missiles. She does not appear in any headline about American military power. What she carries is a well deck, 440 feet long, 50 feet wide. That is not a compartment. That is a warehouse built into the belly of a ship. A warehouse with a door at the back that opens directly into the ocean. And inside that warehouse, 4 of them. LCAC, Landing Craft Air Cushion. Each one capable of carrying 60 tons of cargo. Each one capable of traveling at over 40 knots. Each one capable of doing something no other vessel in the American fleet can do. Flying over a minefield. Here is a number that matters. The entire Whidbey Island class, Comstock's class, was designed in the late 1970s specifically because the US Navy studied one problem. How do you land Marines on a Soviet-defended coastline when every approach is mined? The answer took a decade to engineer. The LCAC was that answer. And Comstock was built to carry more of them than any other ship in the fleet. 4 LCACs in a single well deck. That decision made by engineers 40 years ago in a Cold War that ended before Comstock even launched is the reason 4,400 Marines can be sustained at Hormuz today. Good engineering does not expire. Here is the physics that changes everything. An LCAC does not float. It rides on a cushion of compressed air, 4 feet above the water surface. 4 gas turbines, Avco-Lycoming TF40Bs, generating 16,000 shaft horsepower combined. That power feeds 2 systems simultaneously. 4 centrifugal fans inflate a rubberized skirt beneath the hull, creating the air cushion. 2 shrouded propellers drive the craft forward. The result is a vehicle that weighs 170 tons fully loaded and touches nothing. Not the water, not the seabed, nothing. Now consider Iran's mines. The most common type deployed in the strait is pressure activated. It requires direct physical contact or significant pressure displacement beneath a vessel's hull to detonate. A steel ship moving through water creates a pressure wave beneath its keel. That wave triggers the mine. An LCAC riding 4 feet above the water on compressed air creates no such wave. The mine does not fire. It cannot fire. The vehicle it was designed to destroy passes directly over it at 40 knots, and the mine registers nothing. Run the comparison. A conventional landing craft crosses a minefield at 8 knots. 5 nautical miles of lethal exposure over 37 minutes. An LCAC crosses the same distance in under 8 minutes. 37 minutes of exposure versus 8 minutes. That is not an improvement. That is a completely different category of capability. Now run the logistics math. 1 LCAC trip delivers 60 tons. That is 120,000 pounds of cargo per run. 1 MV-22 Osprey at combat range carries roughly 8,000 pounds effectively. 1 LCAC trip equals 15 Osprey sorties. Comstock carries 4 LCACs running continuous cycles day and night. That is more tonnage delivered daily than 60 helicopter flights. Without Comstock, the Marines hold the islands for 5 days, maybe 7. Then ammunition runs out, generators stop, HIMARS launchers go silent, and the islands fall not to an Iranian counterattack, but to the same logistics failure that almost ended Britain's campaign 44 years ago. Now, the detail that makes this ship's story remarkable. According to the Navy's 2020 long-range shipbuilding plan, USS Comstock was scheduled to be decommissioned this year, retired, struck from the Naval Register, her 4 LCACs redistributed to newer hulls. The ship herself either sunk as an artificial reef or sold for scrap at roughly 6 cents per pound of steel. A 3-5-year old ship at the end of a long career. The decommissioning process had already begun. Maintenance budgets reduced, crew size trimmed, systems marked for transfer. In the U.S. Navy, decommissioning is not an event. It is a slow process that takes 18 to 24 months. Systems get stripped, weapons transferred. The ship becomes a shell before it officially ends. Comstock was already in that process. Then a staff officer in the Pentagon looked at a map of the Persian Gulf, Marines on Abu Musa, mines in every direction, a supply problem with no conventional solution, and looked at the fleet. Every LSD with a large well deck was either deployed, in maintenance, or too far away. Except one. The one with paperwork filed for retirement. So the paperwork stopped. Comstock was reactivated, reloaded, crew restored to full strength, and sent west toward the Pacific. Right now, a 3-5-year-old ship that was weeks away from the end of her service life is instead heading toward the most contested waterway on the planet, carrying the 4 hovercraft that will determine whether 4,400 Marines survive past day 10. The ship the Pentagon was finished with is now performing the most important mission of her entire career. Now understand why this matters beyond one ship. The Boxer Amphibious Ready Group is 3 ships. Each one solves a different equation. Boxer attacks, F-35Bs, 2,200 Marines. The Assault, Portland sustains the people. 124 hospital beds. 2 operating rooms. An Osprey medevac that puts a wounded Marine into surgery in 12 minutes. A 150 kilowatt laser that burns Iranian surveillance drones out of the sky for the cost of electricity pennies per shot versus tens of thousands per drone. Comstock sustains the machines. 4 LCACs, ammunition, fuel, replacement parts. The supply chain that runs over the mines. Remove Boxer, you cannot take the islands. Remove Portland, your wounded die on the beach. Remove Comstock, your HIMARS goes silent on day 5, and everything you seize becomes indefensible by day 10. 3 ships, 3 equations, 1 system. The system only works if all 3 ships are present. Comstock is the 3rd ship, the one no headline mentioned, the one no defense contractor marketed, the one no analyst included in their coverage of American power at Hormuz, the one the entire operation depends on. Here is what Iran got wrong. Their mine strategy was not designed to stop the assault. It was designed to stop the supply chain. Iranian strategists understood that a direct assault could not be stopped. They had watched 2 carrier strike groups operate for weeks. They had no answer to F-35Bs. So they stopped trying to stop the landing. They planned to let the Marines land, and then starve them out. Mines surrounding every approach. No conventional ship gets through. No resupply, no reinforcement. Marines hold the islands for a week. Then ammunition runs dry. Then they withdraw. Iran reclaims the islands without a counterattack. It was a logical strategy, built for a navy that fights with conventional ships. It did not account for a 3-5-year-old vessel with 4 hovercraft that fly over every mine in the water. Iran prepared for the wrong variable. The variable they overlooked was scheduled to be decommissioned. War does not end when the bombs stop. War ends when one side runs out of logistics before the other. Iran's factories are rubble. Iran's ports are destroyed. Iran's navy is gone. The supply chain feeding the American force flies over every mine Iran placed to stop it. The supply chain that fed Iran's defense no longer exists. Crossing the Pacific, right now a 3-5-year-old ship weeks from retirement, carrying 4 hovercraft toward the most important mission of her career, keeping 4,400 Marines alive at the far end of the world's most dangerous waterway. The Pentagon almost scrapped her. The engineers who designed her 40 years ago, building a solution to a Cold War problem that no longer existed, never imagined this moment. History will remember her differently. If this changed how you think about which ships actually decide wars, subscribe to your channel name. Because the ships behind the headlines are always the ones that change the outcome. Type Comstock in the comments if you think she earned her place in this fight. And if you want to understand what Portland's laser does to every Iranian drone sent to find this supply convoy, that video is already loaded.